6 months after the Council's formal apology, the galaxy had changed in ways that no one had expected. The round table in the new Council chamber was full. Representatives from every member species sat together, discussing a proposal to explore an area of space called the Outer Veil. This region was dangerous, filled with strange energy patterns that interfered with ships and sensors. No single species could explore it safely alone. But together, with combined resources and shared knowledge, they could map it and learn from it. The vote was unanimous. The joint expedition would launch in 3 months. It would be led by 2 people working as equals, human Captain Lisa Morgan and Valorn scientist Calixthrin. Their team would include members from a dozen different species, all chosen for their skills rather than their political connections. This was the new way. Projects were judged on merit. People were valued for what they could contribute. Status came from ability, not from how old your species was. Linda Hayes watched the vote with satisfaction. 6 months ago, such cooperation would have been impossible. The elder species would have claimed the right to lead any major expedition. Younger species would have been assigned support roles at best. Now, everyone had a chance to participate as equals. After the session ended, Vrextal approached Linda. The Xanthari representative had changed more than anyone. His arrogance had been replaced by humility. His contempt had been replaced by respect. Some people did not trust the change, thinking it was an act, but Linda had spent enough time with him to know it was real. Ambassador Hayes, Vrextal said, using her proper title. I wanted to thank you. Thank me? For what? For walking away, Vrextal said quietly. If you had not, I would have continued in my ignorance. I would have continued treating others as inferior. Your departure forced me to see the truth. It was painful, but it was necessary. Linda studied him carefully. You understand that many humans still do not trust you. You said things that hurt us deeply. I know, Vrextal said, and I do not expect forgiveness quickly. I will spend years proving that my change is real. But I wanted you to know that I am grateful for the lesson, even though it was hard to learn. Linda nodded. Then prove it through your actions. That is all anyone can ask. On Earth, President Claire Martinez gave an address to the Global Assembly. Behind her, screens showed images from across Council space. Humans and aliens working together on hundreds of projects, building space stations, exploring new worlds, trading goods and ideas, creating art and music that blended different cultures. 6 months ago, Claire said, humanity made a difficult choice. We walked away from an institution we had served for 3 centuries. Many people criticized that decision. They said we were abandoning our responsibilities. They said we were being selfish. They said we would regret it. She paused and looked directly into the camera. Today I can say with certainty that we made the right choice. Not because walking away felt good. Not because we wanted to hurt anyone. But because some things are more important than peace. Some things are more important than stability. Dignity is one of those things. Self-respect is one of those things. Equality is one of those things. When we walked away, we were not running from responsibility. We were refusing to accept being treated as less than we are. We were teaching a lesson that needed to be taught. That you cannot take people for granted. That you cannot use people and expect them to stay forever. That respect must be earned and partnership must be chosen. The Council learned that lesson. It was hard for them. It was painful. But they learned it. And now we have returned, not as servants, but as equals. Not as tools, but as partners. The Council is different now. Better, more fair, more just. There are people who ask if the cost was worth it. 3 months of chaos, conflicts that escalated, infrastructure that failed, lives that were lost. I understand those concerns. But I would ask this. What is the cost of accepting disrespect? What is the price of teaching our children that they should accept being treated as inferior? What would humanity have become if we had continued down that path? We will never know because we chose differently. We chose dignity. And in doing so, we showed the galaxy that real strength is not about dominating others. Real strength is knowing when to walk away. And sometimes, if you are fortunate, the people you walk away from learn something valuable. In the Joint Military Command Center on Luna, Commander Jack Morrison trained a new group of officers from multiple species. The class included humans, Kyrosians, Dracon, Valorn, and even 2 Xanthari. They were learning advanced tactical coordination, the methods that human forces had developed over centuries of experience. Jack stood in front of the class, pointing at a holographic display showing a simulated battle. The key to effective joint operations is understanding that every species has different strengths. Humans are good at quick decisions and adapting to chaos. Corosians excel at sustained firepower. Draken have superior communications. Valorn have the best sensors. When you combine these strengths properly, the whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts. One of the Xanthari students raised a claw. Commander, how do you prevent disagreements during combat? What if two commanders from different species have different ideas about what to do? Jack smiled. Good question. The answer is trust and practice. You build trust by working together before the battle. You practice together so much that you start to think alike. And you establish clear protocols for who makes what decisions. In the heat of battle, there is no time for debate. You trust your partners to do their jobs, and they trust you to do yours. Lieutenant Amy Sullivan watched from the back of the room. After class, she approached Jack. You are a good teacher, sir. I had good teachers myself, Jack said. And now I'm passing that knowledge on. That is how it should work. We lift each other up. Do you think it will last? This new cooperation? Jack considered the question. I think it will last as long as everyone remembers the lesson. The moment someone starts taking others for granted again, the moment someone starts treating partners as servants, that is when problems will return. But I believe most beings want fairness. Most beings want to be treated with respect. As long as we keep giving each other that respect, we will be fine. On New Boston Colony, construction continued on the new generation of human ships, but now alien engineers worked alongside human designers. A Valorn scientist had contributed a new type of shield generator. A Xanthari engineer had improved the power distribution system. A Draken communications specialist had enhanced the sensor arrays. The ships being built were not purely human anymore. They were joint designs incorporating the best ideas from multiple species. They were stronger and more capable than anything one species could have built alone. Kate Murphy, who had helped rebuild Thessia Prime, now supervised the civilian construction projects. She worked with a mixed team of humans and aliens, building trading stations and research outposts across multiple systems. One day, a young human engineer named Gary asked her a question. Kate, do you think we did the right thing by coming back? Some people say we should have stayed separate, built our own civilization without the council. Kate put down the tools she was holding and thought about her answer. We could have done that. We are strong enough. But Gary, the galaxy is a big place. There is room for cooperation without losing who we are. The key is that we came back on our terms. We did not crawl back begging. We walked back as equals. That makes all the difference, but what if they forget? What if in another 100 years they start treating us badly again? Then we walk away again, Kate said simply. We proved we can do it once. That means we can do it again if necessary, but I do not think it will come to that. The council paid a heavy price for their arrogance. That is not a lesson they will forget quickly. In the council chamber, the arbiter called a special session to mark the 6-month anniversary of the new agreement. All representatives were present. The chamber was filled with a sense of cautious optimism. 6 months ago, the arbiter said, this council nearly fell apart. We lost the partnership of our most valuable allies because we failed to treat them with respect. Today I want to acknowledge that failure publicly and thank humanity for giving us another chance. The arbiter turned to face Linda Hayes directly. Ambassador Hayes, humanity could have left us to fail. You could have watched us collapse and felt justified in doing so. Instead, when we apologized sincerely, you agreed to return and help us build something better. That generosity will not be forgotten. Linda stood and addressed the chamber. Humanity did not return out of generosity. We returned because you changed. Because you showed us that you could learn and grow. That you could admit mistakes and correct them. That is all we ever wanted. Not to be praised. Not to be elevated above others. Just to be treated fairly. The new council is not perfect. There are still problems. There are still disagreements. But now we solve those problems together. Now we respect each other's perspectives. Now we build consensus instead of forcing compliance. That is worth returning for. She looked around the chamber at all the different species represented there. To every species here I say this. We are in this together now. Truly together as equals. The negotiations took 3 weeks. Not because humanity made unreasonable demands. Not because the council refused to cooperate. But because changing 300 years of established practice takes time. Every detail had to be discussed. Every clause had to be written carefully. Every species in the council had to agree. President Claire Martinez led the human negotiating team. She was joined by Linda Hayes, General Paul Henderson, and a dozen other experts in law, military affairs, and diplomacy. The council sent its own team, led by the Arbiter and Ambassador Kelvin Drake. Vrextal also remained, insisting that he needed to be part of fixing what he had broken. They met every day in that same simple conference room in Geneva. The talks were not easy. Old habits die hard. Sometimes council representatives would slip back into their old ways of thinking, treating humans as subordinates. But each time it happened, the humans would stop the discussion and point it out. And each time the aliens would apologize and correct themselves. Slowly, piece by piece, a new agreement took shape. The old council structure had the elder species sitting in high seats, looking down at younger species below. That would end. The new council would have a round table where everyone sat at the same level. No one above, no one below. The old voting system let the majority overrule anyone. 3 species could vote together and force the other 40 to obey. That would end too. Major decisions would now require consensus, not complete unanimity, which would make decisions impossible, but a much higher threshold that prevented small groups from dominating. Humanity would no longer hold just 1 seat on the council. They would hold 5 seats, proportional to their contribution to council operations. Other species who contributed more would also get additional representation. The days of ancient heritage determining power were over. Most importantly, any species could now propose policy changes. Before, only the elder species could make proposals. Everyone else just voted yes or no on what they were told. Now any member could bring forward ideas. Any member could challenge existing rules. Any member had a real voice. The military structure changed completely. Instead of council leadership giving orders to human forces, there would be joint commands. Human officers would work alongside alien officers as equals. Battle plans would be created together, not handed down from above. And no species would be required to follow orders they believed were wrong or dangerous. Infrastructure projects would operate the same way. No more humans building things and then having them taken away. All projects would be joint efforts with shared ownership. All species would contribute resources and expertise. All species would benefit from the results. Trade agreements would be renegotiated to be fair. Before, humans often did work for free or at cost, with the council taking most of the profit. Now human labor and human resources would be paid for properly, just like everyone else's. And there would be a new position created, the council mediator. This person would be independent of all species' interests. Their job would be to watch for situations where one species was being mistreated or taken advantage of. They would have the power to call emergency sessions and demand changes. The first mediator would be human, chosen by humanity. After that, the position would rotate among species. When the final agreement was written, all parties signed it in a ceremony broadcast across the galaxy. President Martinez signed for humanity. The Arbiter signed for the Council. One by one, every member species added their signature. The humans did not celebrate loudly. They did not gloat. They simply acknowledged that this was a better arrangement than before. That was enough. The real test would come in implementing these changes. Words on paper meant nothing if actions did not follow. Commander Jack Morrison was one of the first to see the changes in action. He was assigned to the new Joint Military Command Center being built on Luna, Earth's moon. When he arrived, he was surprised to find alien officers already there, working alongside human construction crews. A Kyrosian tactical officer named Talvek approached Jack and saluted. In the old days, aliens never saluted humans. Humans saluted aliens. This small gesture told Jack that things really were different now. Commander Morrison, Talvek said, I am honored to serve with you. I have studied your tactics in the Frontier Reach. Your methods are brilliant. Jack returned the salute. Thank you, Talvek. I look forward to working together. They walked through the command center together. Everywhere, humans and aliens worked side by side. A Zenthari engineer showed a human technician a better way to route power cables. A human pilot taught a Dracon communications specialist how to coordinate multiple ships during combat. A Valorn scientist shared advanced sensor technology with human researchers. It was not perfect. There were still misunderstandings. Cultural differences caused confusion. Sometimes tempers flared when people were tired or stressed. But each time there was a problem, Both sides worked to solve it instead of just blaming each other. Lieutenant Amy Sullivan met Jack at the observation deck. She had been assigned to the command center as his assistant. "What do you think, sir?" she asked, looking out at the construction below. "I think we will find out if this really works," Jack said honestly. "Words and signatures are easy. Living up to them is hard. Do you trust them?" Jack considered the question carefully. "I do not trust all of them. Some aliens still resent us. Some still think we overstepped by demanding equality. But I trust that most of them have learned their lesson, and I trust that if they forget, we can walk away again." That was the key. Humanity had proven they were willing to leave. That changed everything. The Council knew that humans were not trapped. They were not dependent. They could survive and thrive on their own. That knowledge forced the Council to actually value what humanity brought to the table. On Thessia Prime, the Valorn colony that had nearly collapsed, human engineers returned to help with reconstruction. But this time things were different. The Valorn government paid human contractors fair rates for their work. Valorn engineers worked alongside the humans, learning the systems properly so they could maintain them in the future, and the humans shared their knowledge freely, teaching instead of just doing the work themselves. An older Valorn named Kristalik supervised the local engineering team. He approached the human team leader, a woman named Kate Murphy. "Why are you teaching us so thoroughly?" he asked. "Before humans would just fix things and leave," Kate smiled. "Before you treated us like servants who should be grateful to work. Now you treat us like partners you value. That changes everything. We want you to succeed because your success is our success now. We are in this together." Kristalik's crystal body pulsed with colors that indicated deep thought. "We took you for granted. We see that now. It is shameful how we behaved. The past is the past," Kate said. "What matters is what we do going forward." In the Frontier Reach, Captain Greg Nelson commanded a new joint patrol fleet. His task force included 5 human ships and 10 ships from various council species. At first, he worried that the alien crews would not be able to keep up with human tactics. He worried that communication would be difficult. He worried that old prejudices would cause problems. Most of his worries proved wrong. The Corosian crews were brave and eager to learn. The Draken communications officers were excellent at coordinating between different species. Even the Zenthari, despite their past arrogance, proved to be skilled engineers who improved the fleet's capabilities. Their first real test came 2 months after the new agreement. Pirates attacked a merchant convoy near the border of the Frontier Reach. The convoy sent a distress call. Captain Greg's task force responded immediately. The battle was intense. The pirates had grown bold during the 3 months when humans were gone. They had better ships and better weapons than before. But the joint fleet worked together smoothly. Human ships used their superior speed to harass the pirates. Corosian ships used their heavy weapons to break pirate formations. Draken ships coordinated everyone's movements. Zenthari engineers kept all the ships running at peak performance. The pirates were defeated with no friendly casualties. After the battle, the merchant captain sent a message thanking the fleet. "It is good to see humans and council species working together again," the message said. "The galaxy is safer this way." Captain Greg could not disagree. Ambassador Linda Hayes stood in her new office at the council headquarters. The entire complex had been relocated to a neutral station in space, orbiting a star system on the border between human and Valorn territory. The symbolism was clear. This was not the aliens' council that humans joined. This was everyone's council, built together. Her new title was Human Senior Representative. She held the same rank as the senior representatives from all other species. No one was above her. No one was below her. Peter Grant, who was now one of her assistants, entered with a report. "The first month under the new system has gone well," he said. "Complaints are down. Cooperation is up. Several joint projects are ahead of schedule." "Any problems?" Linda asked. "A few. Some of the elder species are still adjusting. They sometimes forget and try to give orders instead of making requests. But when reminded, they correct themselves." Linda nodded. "That is to be expected. 300 years of habit will not disappear overnight." Day 87. 3 days before humanity's withdrawal would become permanent. Ambassador Linda Hayes sat in her apartment on Earth. She was not living in the fancy diplomatic quarters anymore. Those belonged to her replacement now. She had moved to a simple apartment in Geneva, the city where the human government kept its main offices. Large windows showed the city below. In the distance, she could see the mountains. She was watching news feeds from across council space. The news was bad. Very bad. Peter Grant stood next to her. He was the new human ambassador, though there was not much for him to do since humanity was leaving. He shook his head as he read the reports on his tablet. The Solarian border conflicts have become a full war. Without human mediators, the Solarians and the Trencor Unity could not find peace. They have been fighting for 3 weeks now. 30 million dead. Linda felt sick to her stomach. 30 million lives. But she kept her face calm. The Council has hundreds of diplomats from dozens of species. They chose not to use them properly because it was easier to let humans do all the work. The Valorn are evacuating Thessia Prime, Peter continued. Total infrastructure collapse. They are calling it the worst disaster in their history. Millions of people fleeing the planet. They had 100 years to learn how their own systems worked. Peter turned to face her. His expression was troubled. Linda, people are dying out there. Millions of beings who had nothing to do with how the Council treated us. They are suffering. I know, Linda said quietly. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Do you think I do not know? Do you think I do not see the reports? Do you think I sleep well at night? Then why are we doing this? Linda stood up and walked to the window. She looked out at the city for a long moment before answering. Peter, we tried for 300 years. We begged them to treat us as equals. We asked them to respect what we did for them. We wanted a real voice in decisions that affected our people. And what did they call us? She turned back to face him. They called us hammers. They called us wrenches. They made it very clear that we would never be anything more than tools. So we just let the galaxy burn? No, Linda said firmly. We let them learn. We let them understand what they lost. If they want our help, they know how to ask for it. But not as servants. Not as tools. As equals. Peter was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, what if they do not ask? What if they are too proud? Then we will have our answer, Linda said. We will know that we made the right choice by leaving. Because staying with people who will never respect you is worse than being alone. In the council chamber, the chaos had reached a breaking point. The Arbiter could barely keep control. Every day brought new disasters. Every hour brought new emergencies. The council that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years was falling apart in less than 3 months. The Arbiter's crystal body pulsed rapidly, a sign of extreme distress among its people. We must face the truth, it said. Its voice was amplified through the chamber, cutting through the noise. The council is failing. In less than 3 months, we have lost more than we lost in the previous 50 years. Brextel, the Xanthari representative, looked smaller somehow. His earlier arrogance was gone. The Corvesh mining operation has completely failed. Without human knowledge, we cannot extract the minerals efficiently. We have spent enormous amounts of money for nothing. The frontier reach is lost to us, reported the Kyrosian ambassador. Pirates have taken over 7 systems. They have permanent bases there now. Our fleet cannot match human tactical skills. We lose ships every week. Our people are afraid to travel. One by one, each representative told their story of disaster. Medical systems failing. Trade routes collapsing. Wars starting. Infrastructure breaking down. The pattern was clear. Humanity had not been simple workers doing basic jobs. They had been the foundation that held up everything. How did we not see this? Someone asked. How did we not realize how much we depended on them? Because they never complained, said Ambassador Kelvin Drake. Humans did their work quietly. They solved problems without making noise. They filled gaps so smoothly that we did not even notice the gaps were there. We got so used to their competence that we thought it meant they were servants. It was more than that, the Arbiter said. We wanted to believe they were inferior. We needed to believe it. Because if we admitted that these newcomers had become necessary to us, we would have to admit that our ancient superiority was a lie. The words hung in the air like an accusation. What can we do? The Solarian ambassador asked. We have tried to contact them. They refuse to talk to us. Because we keep making demands, Kelvin said. We keep approaching them like they owe us something. Like they are being unreasonable by refusing to serve us anymore. Then what should we do? Someone asked. Kelvin looked around the chamber at all the assembled aliens. We need to apologize. Not as a political move. Not as a strategy to get them back. But as a real sincere acknowledgement of how we treated them. And then we need to ask for their help. Not demand it, ask it. As equals asking other equals. Vrextel's mandibles clicked in protest. You want us to humble ourselves before these primitives? They are not primitives, the Arbiter said firmly. They never were. We just refused to see what they had become, or maybe we refused to see what they always were. The chamber erupted in argument again. Some species thought apologizing was a good idea. Others thought it was shameful. Some wanted to find other solutions. Others said there were no other solutions. Finally, the Arbiter called for a vote. The measure barely passed. The Council would send an official delegation to Earth, not to negotiate, not to make deals, to apologize. When the request came through, Ambassador Linda Hayes almost deleted it without reading. She was tired of Council messages, but something made her open it. Maybe curiosity, maybe hope. The message was different from all the others. It did not demand anything. It did not threaten anything. It used one word that Linda had never seen in a Council message before. Apologize. She read the message 3 times to make sure she was not mistaken. Then she called President Claire Martinez. Claire called the other human leaders. They talked for hours, debating what to do. Some people thought it was a trick. Others thought it was too little too late. Some wanted to refuse just to make the Council suffer more. But in the end, they agreed. They would hear what the Council had to say. 3 days later, on day 90, the Council delegation arrived on Earth. They were led by the Arbiter itself. Ambassador Kelvin Drake was with them. And surprisingly, so was Vrextel, the Zenthari who had insulted humanity so badly. The meeting took place in Geneva, not in some grand diplomatic palace, just a simple conference room with a table and chairs. President Claire Martinez sat in the center of the human side. Linda Hayes sat on her right. General Paul Henderson sat on her left. The Arbiter spoke first. Its crystal body seemed dimmer than usual, like it was tired. President Martinez, we have come to apologize. Not to negotiate. Not to make demands. Just to say that we were wrong. Humanity has been the foundation that held the Council together. You made us strong. You solved our problems. You protected our people. And we treated you like servants. We called you tools when you were partners. We dismissed your sacrifices and ignored your contributions. For this, we are deeply sorry. Claire studied the Arbiter's face carefully. She had been a politician for 30 years. She knew how to spot lies, but she saw no lies here. Just exhaustion. Just regret. Just honest shame. Then Vrextel stepped forward. Linda Hayes felt her body tense. This was the being who had called them hammers and wrenches. This was the being who had made the final insult that pushed humanity to leave. Vrextel's voice was quiet. Very different from his usual arrogant tone. I said those words. I called you tools. I believed you were inferior. I was wrong. Humans are not tools. You are extraordinary. You became far greater than we ever let ourselves admit. I personally apologize for my contempt and my blindness. The room was completely silent. Linda felt tears in her eyes but refused to let them fall. Not yet. Why now? She asked. Her voice was steady despite her emotions. Because you need us? Because everything is falling apart without us? Yes, Kelvin Drake said simply. We are here because we need you. That is true. But we are also here because we finally understand what we lost. Not just workers. Not just servants. We lost friends. We lost allies. We lost partners that we never appreciated until you were gone. President Martinez looked at Linda and Paul. She looked at the other humans in the room. They did not speak, but she could read their faces. She could see what they were thinking. Then she turned back to the Council delegation. This is a start, she said carefully. Words are good, but words are not enough. If humanity is going to even consider working with the Council again, things must change. Not small changes, big changes. Real changes. Name your terms, the Arbiter said. And for the first time in 300 years, humanity told the Council exactly what they wanted. The first week after humanity announced they were leaving, the Council did nothing. The alien leaders sat in their chambers and waited. They were sure the humans would come back. They thought humans would return with new demands, asking for better treatment in exchange for staying. That was how these things usually worked. Someone threatens to leave, then comes back asking for a deal. But the humans did not come back. The second week, the Council started to worry. They sent messages to Earth and to all the human colonies spread across space. Important aliens traveled to human worlds wanting to talk. but every single one was turned away. The humans were polite but firm. "Humanity is using its right to leave the council," they said. "We have nothing to talk about." By the third week, strange things started happening across council space. Things that made the aliens realize they had a very big problem. The Valorn were a species that looked like living crystals. They had a colony world called Thessia Prime. For 50 years, human engineers had built and maintained the power systems on that world. The systems were complex with backup plans built into backup plans. When the Valorn tried to take over the work themselves, they discovered they did not understand how the human systems worked. Within 3 days, 3 of the main power reactors failed. The Valorn engineers tried to fix them but only made things worse. The whole power grid started to collapse. Millions of Valorn were left without electricity. Hospitals went dark. Water treatment plants stopped working. The Valorn government declared a state of emergency. The Xanthari were celebrating. They had won the Corvesh system. They sent their mining crews there as fast as they could, excited to start taking the valuable minerals from the asteroids. When they arrived, they found nothing. All the mining equipment was gone. All the survey data had been erased. All the buildings and platforms that humans had spent 2 years building were gone. The Xanthari were furious. They demanded that the Council force humanity to return everything. The Council sent an official request to Earth. The human response came back quickly. It said, "All equipment and data were human property. We created them with human resources and human work. We removed our property from territory we no longer claim. This is completely legal under Council law." The Council could not argue with that. The humans were right. Captain Greg Nelson commanded a human warship called the Valiant. His ship was one of 70 human vessels that patrolled an area called the Frontier Reach. This was a dangerous part of space where pirates liked to attack merchant ships. For decades, human patrols had kept the peace. Pirates knew that if they attacked someone, human ships would come after them fast and hard. When the withdrawal notice took effect, all 70 human ships received the same order. Return to human space immediately. Do not stop. Do not look back. Captain Greg felt bad about leaving. He knew what would happen. But orders were orders. Within 2 days, every human warship had left the Frontier Reach. The pirates noticed right away. Within 1 week, attacks increased by 400%. Merchant ships were robbed. Colonies were raided. People died. The species living in the Frontier Reach sent desperate messages to the Council. "Please send help. Send protection." The Council promised to send ships from other member species. But it took 3 weeks for those ships to arrive. And when they finally got there, they were not prepared. The Kyrosian fleet engaged the pirates in battle. The Kyrosians were brave, but they had never fought pirates before. They did not have the experience that human crews had gained over years of combat. The pirates destroyed 2 Kyrosian ships in the first battle. The rest of the fleet retreated. On Earth, President Claire Martinez sat in her office. She was reading reports with General Paul Henderson, who was in charge of the human military. The reports were intercepted messages from Council space. The Council members were panicking. "They are losing control everywhere," Paul said. He scrolled through the messages on his screen. A dozen major problems all at once. "They cannot handle it," Claire nodded slowly. "Are they trying to force us to come back?" "No," Paul said. "They know they cannot. We have the strongest military in known space. We have been defending them for 300 years. Our fleet is bigger and better trained than all of theirs put together. If they try to force us, they lose badly." "Good," Claire said. "We are not going back unless things change. Real change, not just promises." Something interesting was happening across human space. For 300 years, humans had been focused on the Council. They had spent all their energy trying to prove themselves to aliens, trying to earn respect from species that saw them as lesser beings. Human scientists worked on Council projects. Human soldiers fought Council wars. Human diplomats solved Council problems. Now, for the first time in 3 centuries, humans were looking at themselves instead of looking outward. Scientists who had been making technology for the Council started working on human projects instead. Military ships that had been scattered across Council space came home to protect human worlds. Diplomats who had spent their careers talking to aliens came back to Earth and the colonies. Resources that had been stretched thin were now concentrated. Money that had been spent on Council projects was now spent on human needs. People who had been working for others were now working for themselves, and humanity said nothing to the Council. No announcements. No explanations. No angry speeches about how badly they had been treated. They just withdrew into silence. The silence was louder than any words could have been. Back in the council chamber, the arbiter was trying to maintain order, but the chamber was chaos. Representatives from 40 different species were all shouting at once. Everyone was angry. Everyone was scared. Everyone wanted someone to blame. "This is a disaster," shouted one alien. "We need the humans back," yelled another. "How did we let this happen?" demanded a third. The arbiter's crystal body flashed with bright colors, a sign of extreme stress. "Please, we must have order. Shouting will not solve anything." But the shouting continued. Vrextal, the Zenthari who had called humans tools, stood up. His voice was weaker than before, less confident. "The humans have sabotaged us. They removed their equipment. They took their data. They withdrew their support. This is manipulation. This is extortion. We should declare them enemies of the council." Another voice cut through the noise. "Are you insane?" It was Ambassador Kelvin Drake, from a species called the Dracon. The Dracon had always been neutral toward humans. Not friendly, not hostile, just neutral. "You want to declare war on the only species that kept this council functioning?" "They were subordinates," Vrextal said. "Not partners, subordinates." Kelvin's voice was cold. "Subordinates who controlled 70% of our military power? Subordinates who managed 30% of our infrastructure? Subordinates who mediated 60% of our diplomatic conflicts? Tell me, Vrextal, what happens when you cut out your own heart?" The chamber went quiet. Kelvin continued. "We took them for granted. We treated them like servants. We called them tools to their faces. And now we are surprised that they left. The only surprise is that they stayed as long as they did." Someone else spoke up. It was the Corrosian ambassador. The Corrosians were normally a proud species, but now they sounded desperate. "We need to bring them back. Send representatives. Offer them concessions. Whatever it takes." "They will not meet with our representatives," the arbiter said sadly. "We have tried. They use their legal right to withdraw and refuse all contact." "Then what do we do?" someone asked. No one had an answer. On a human colony called New Boston, Commander Jack Morrison was overseeing a construction project. Human shipyards that used to build vessels for council service were now building ships for humanity alone. The new ships were bigger, faster, and more advanced than anything the council had ever seen. Lieutenant Amy Sullivan walked up to Jack with a tablet in her hands. "Sir, we are getting hundreds of requests for help from council worlds. Medical emergencies, infrastructure problems, security issues. What should I tell them?" Jack thought for a moment. "Tell them we are not part of the council anymore. They need to send their requests through official council channels." "They already did, sir. The council cannot respond fast enough. They do not have enough resources." "Then they will have to find more resources." Amy hesitated. "Permission to speak freely, sir?" "Always," Jack said. "Are we really going to let people die just to make a point?" Jack turned to face her. His expression was serious. "Amy, in the 300 years we served the council, how many times did they help us when we needed it? When the Corvin plague hit New Terra, did they send medical help? No. We quarantined ourselves and found our own cure. When raiders attacked our outer colonies, did they send military support? No, we fought them off by ourselves. Every time humanity needed help, they told us to handle it ourselves." "But sir, that does not mean we should become like them." "You are right," Jack said, "and we will not. But we also will not go back to being used. If the council wants our help, they know what they need to do." Amy nodded slowly. "They need to ask us. As equals." "Exactly," Jack said. The silence continued. And with each passing day, the council fell further into chaos. The large council room was filled with alien beings from across the galaxy. They sat in their high seats looking down at the two humans who stood in the center of the floor. The room had tall ceilings and walls that glowed with a soft blue light. For 300 years, humans had worked for this council. They had fought wars, built machines, and solved problems that no one else could solve. But the aliens had never treated them as equals. To the council, humans were still the new species, the young ones who should be happy just to be allowed in the room. Commander Jack Morrison stood straight in his military uniform. His face showed nothing, but inside he was angry. Next to him was Ambassador Linda Hayes. She wore a dark suit and kept her hands folded in front of her. Both of them had been to this council room many times before. Both of them knew what was about to happen. A tall, bug-like alien named Vrextal spoke first. He was from a species called the Zenthari. His voice was harsh and clicking. You humans have gone too far this time. The mining rights to the Corvesh system belong to the Zenthari people. We had plans for that system 200 years before your people even learned how to travel between stars. Linda Hayes took a breath before speaking. Her voice was calm and professional. With respect, humanity discovered those mineral deposits. We reported them to the Council as the law requires. The Corvesh system had no owner. It was empty space, another alien spoke up. This one looked like a large lizard with shimmering scales. Her name was not important. What mattered was the hate in her voice. Empty by council law, maybe. But the Zenthari had claims to that space long before you humans joined the council. Your membership means nothing compared to thousands of years of history. Jack felt his teeth pressed together. His hands wanted to become fists, but he kept them at his sides. This was how it always happened. Humans did the hard work. Humans took the risks. Humans made the discoveries. And then the council took everything away and gave it to someone else. The council leader was called the Arbiter. It was a strange being that looked like it was made of living crystal. Lights moved through its body in waves of color. The Arbiter raised one of its many arms. The council has made its decision. The Corvesh system and everything in it now belongs to the Zenthari collective. The human claim is rejected. Linda Hayes let her professional mask slip for just a second. Anyone watching could see the anger flash across her face. Arbiter, this is the 7th time in 2 years that you have taken what humans earned and given it to other species. We gave you nothing in return. Our people risked their lives to map that system. We spent 2 years working there. Vrextal made a sound that might have been a laugh. Then maybe your people need to learn where they belong. You are useful to us humans. We cannot deny that. But you are not our equals. You are tools. You are like hammers and wrenches, and tools do not tell their owners what to do. The entire room went quiet. Even the other aliens seemed shocked by how cruel those words were. Some of them looked uncomfortable, but no one spoke up to defend the humans. Jack turned his head to look at Linda. She looked back at him. In that moment, without saying a word, they both understood what needed to happen. They had both been thinking the same thing for a long time. Now it was time to act. Linda Hayes spoke in a soft voice, but everyone in the room heard her clearly. Very well. If that is how the council sees humanity, then humanity does not need to be part of this council anymore. The Arbiter's body flashed bright with surprise. You cannot just leave the council, Ambassador Hayes. Your species signed treaties. You made agreements. These things have bound you to us for centuries. Linda pulled out a small electronic pad from her pocket. She touched the screen a few times and then looked up. Actually, Arbiter, according to Article 7 of the Founding Charter, any member species can leave the Council if they give 90 days' notice. The only requirement is that the species must feel its freedom is being threatened. Humanity uses Article 7 right now. We will leave the Council in 90 days. The room exploded with noise. Aliens began shouting at each other. Some demanded that the humans be stopped. Others asked what Article 7 was. A few sat in stunned silence, but Jack Morrison and Linda Hayes did not stay to listen. They turned around together and walked toward the exit. Their footsteps echoed in the large chamber. Jack kept his back straight and his eyes forward. Linda held her head high. Neither of them looked back. They did not yell. They did not make threats. They did not curse or slam the door. They did not need to do any of those things. Their message was clear enough. As they walked down the long hallway outside the council chamber, Jack finally spoke. That felt good. Linda allowed herself a small smile. It did. But now comes the hard part. Convincing Earth to back our decision? That, Linda said, and living with what happens next. We just walked away from 300 years of history. A lot of people are not going to be happy about it. Jack nodded. I know, but we had to do it. You heard what he called us, tools, hammers, like we are objects they own. I heard, Linda said quietly. Everyone heard. And that is why this will work, because every human who hears about today will understand why we left. No one wants to be treated like a tool. They reached the transport station where their ship was waiting. As they climbed aboard, Jack looked back one last time at the massive council building. It looked like a mountain of metal and glass, reaching up into the purple sky of this alien world. For 300 years, humans had come to this place hoping to earn respect, hoping to be seen as equals. Now they were leaving, and they were not coming back. Not unless things changed. The ship lifted off smoothly. Through the window, Jack watched the council building get smaller and smaller. "Do you think they will try to stop us?" he asked. Linda shook her head. "They cannot. Article 7 is clear. We have the legal right to leave. And they know that if they try to use force, they will lose. Humanity has the strongest military in the galaxy now. We have been protecting all of them for so long that our fleet is bigger than all of theirs combined. So what will they do?" "I do not know," Linda admitted. "Maybe they will let us go and try to replace us. Maybe they will realize they made a mistake. We will find out in the next 90 days. The ship jumped into faster-than-light travel. In seconds, they left the council world behind. They were going home. Going back to Earth to face whatever came next, but neither of them had any regrets. They had stood up for humanity. They had refused to be treated as tools. And they had walked away with dignity. Sometimes, walking away is the bravest thing you can do. Part 2. The Silence. The first week after humanity's announcement, the council waited for the inevitable return. Surely the humans would come back with demands, with negotiations, with some attempt to leverage their withdrawal for better terms. They did not. The second week, the council sent emissaries to Earth and the human colonies. All were turned away politely but firmly. Humanity is exercising its right to withdraw, they were told. We have nothing further to discuss. By the third week, the council began to notice the changes. The Valorn Confederation requested assistance with a failing infrastructure project on their colony world of Thessia Prime. The project had been designed and maintained by human engineers for the past 50 years. The council sent Valorn engineers to take over. Within days, 3 of the primary reactors suffered cascading failures. The Valorn engineers discovered that the human-designed systems were far more complex than they appeared, with redundancies and fail-safes nested within fail-safes. Without the humans who understood the systems, the colony's power grid began to collapse. The Zenthari Collective celebrated their victory in the Corvish system and immediately dispatched mining crews to begin extraction operations. They arrived to find the mining sites empty. All the equipment, all the surveying data, all the infrastructure that humanity had spent 2 years establishing had been removed. The Zenthari demanded the council force humanity to return the equipment. The council sent an inquiry. Humanity's response was brief. All equipment and data were human property, created with human resources and human labor. We have removed our property from territory we no longer claim. This is entirely legal under council law. Captain Greg Nelson commanded the Earthship Valiant, one of 70 human vessels that had been providing patrol and security services along the dangerous frontier reach. When the withdrawal notice went into effect, all 70 ships received the same order: return to human space immediately. The frontier reach had been relatively peaceful for decades thanks to the human patrols. Within 2 weeks of the human departure, pirate attacks increased by 400%. The species living in the reach sent desperate pleas to the council for protection. The council dispatched ships from other member species. The Kyrosian fleet arrived 3 weeks later, only to discover they lacked the tactical experience and coordination that human crews had developed over years of service. Their first engagement with pirates resulted in the loss of 2 council vessels. On Earth, President Claire Martinez sat in her office reviewing reports with General Paul Henderson, the head of the Joint Military Command. "The council is starting to panic," Paul said, scrolling through intercepted communications. "They're losing control of a dozen situations simultaneously.